Welcome back for part 3 of the series for setting up this calendar. This video we're going to be setting up the third screen. We actually created the screen in the last video, but we didn't configure it at all. Alright, so we went over this, in the last one we went over this screen here where we went over setting up the form with the gallery on it. This one is basically, it's going to be the same thing, except it's going to be for modifying this series. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to basically copy everything on the screen and move it over to there, and then we're going to make a few modifications. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click onto this screen here, hit Control A, copy it with Control C, and then we're going to go over to the series event screen and we're going to paste all the controls. Now we're going to have to configure some of these because we're not dealing with anything new here. Okay, I mean, we don't have to change the formulas, but performance wise you want to do that. So in here I would say what you need to do first is we're going to go through these controls and make sure everything looks correctly. Alright, so our default for our title is just going to be very selected. Remember, this screen is only for dealing with reoccurring events. Okay, so we're going to, whatever record we select on, it's going to populate this variable, and then we're going to pull the event out. For this one, we are going to our default selected date will be just very selected start date. The hour, I don't know, we want defaults. We're going to leave our if statement in here. So we'll grab this, put this up here. Okay. With this, we're going to, alright, I'm going to pause the video. You can generally see what I'm doing here. I'm just removing the new parts of it, of the formulas, okay? So when we come back, we'll continue on. Okay, I'm back again. I went ahead and removed all the formula portions of the one that's so new. So that basically it's just, it'll only show the very selected record properties in each one of these things. So let's go back to the main menu here. We're going to need some data to work with. get set up, this will only go to that screen if it is a series. Okay? Which basically means it has a series ID of 0. Okay? So let's go ahead and select the new event sequence right here. So I'm going to hold Alt down and I'm going to click on the event. Alright, so when it comes up, some of the stuff didn't populate. Alright, so we got our title, we got our dates to show up, but the hour did not show up, so let's see why it did that. So if we look right here, it says 12/6/2023, 6 p.m. Right? So since it's a single digit, since it's less than 2 digits, it should put a 0 and then the hour of this. So let's see what this is here. Let's make sure this is populating correctly. 018. Okay, I went ahead and gone through everything, and everything seems to be working now. The biggest problem I had was with these here. Okay. Apparently when it stores the date in the code itself, it puts it in a 24-hour clock. So I had to add some extra things I didn't have to do. So I'm probably going to have to fix my other screen as well. But so the dates were right. You'll notice it says 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. like it's supposed to, like it does down here. Okay, so on these, if you look here, I basically put, it works off 2 factors, right? It works off the all-day event toggle, and it works off of what hour is being presented. So the hour function on here, if you highlight this, you'll see, because at 6 p.m. it's 1800 hours, right? Or 1800 hours on the thing. So since it's 18, we got to convert that back into a 12-hour clock. So what I did here is I said if the hour is greater than 12, you know, what? This is still wrong. Okay. So actually the end date's probably the better one. The end date's when I really discovered how to do this the right way. They're basically the same though. So it says if it's got 3 conditions it has to meet in order for the first line to be true. Okay. It says the all day event has to be false, as you can see here. If the hour of selected.end date is greater than 12, so if it's less than 12, it's going to make this false. And then it's going to say the length of that data minus 12. If it's less than 2, we're going to put a 0 on the front, and then our time minus 12. Okay. Now, if it's all that, but it equals 2, it's just going to put the hour minus 12. And then if it's less than 12, it's going to look at the length. If it's less than 12, it's less than 2 numbers, it's going to make it 0 plus the hour, and then if anything else. And then it says if the all day event is true, put 12. If it's in, and then if none of these are true, then it'll put the hour of very selected end date as is. Okay, which means it's greater than 12, but it's great. It's got 2 digits in the number, but it's basically it's 10 or 11, 10, 11, or 12, which will work in the drop down. Okay, so I need to go back and fix this, but I'll do that later, offline. All right, so with PM and AM, we basically just did a content search. It says, hey, if AM is in the start date, put AM. If PM's in the start date, put PM. If the all-day event is true, put it to AM, because remember we take the display name and disable these if you turn this toggle on. And the rest of the stuff is just self-explanatory. You know, we're just VariSelected.category.value, and then now this one was a little different. I put, see, in case it doesn't write a email address here, I don't want to pass in a blank value, so I went, if not blank, VariSelected.trainingCoordinator, set the value of the record to Office 365 user profile training coordinator.displayname. Okay, so we put the email address in there, but it looks funky and stuff. I don't like that. I rather have the display name in there. Okay, that's just for display purposes. And on here, you know, the text and the URL are like they're supposed to be. And then the only difference between this and the first screen was, since it's already editing, I actually set the VariSelected record.display name and the URL to these two boxes here. But the save and close button is literally the same. Okay, it's not going to be new no matter what. So we're going to patch those 3 items, and then we're going to set the variable to that in case we need to pull it up for some reason or another. And then we close it. Right, so let's go ahead and save it, close it. Now down here, I had to do a few things to make this work right. Okay, so the number of occurrences. Basically what I did is I count what's in the gallery, and I set this number to that number. Okay. Over here, what I started with is I took the max date, and I subtract the min date from the max date. Okay, so it's basically taking the earliest date and the latest date and subtracting them. Okay, and then I divide it by how many rows there are, which gives you a really radical decimal number. Okay, you get 6.647916666, so basically 2/3. Okay, I don't want that number. I want a whole number. Okay, so I use the round function, and I wanted to round to 0 decimal places. Okay, so basically it should take you up to the next number. And then, actually this is still wrong. I need to get the length of this, and if it's 1, put a 0 in front of it. It says 2. So there's still some errors with this, but we can fix that later. And I set the default to this to days. Okay, because most people deal with days. You know, I have yet to use weeks or months for any of my invites. I just stick it to days, and I just put how many days I want. It's easier because I have this drop down set to 30. You know, you can pick up to 31 days. So if you look here, see, it goes all the way up to 31. So if you want to set that to days, you know how many days. Now, if you do more than 31 days, of course, you're going to put weeks on there. First day of occurrences. Okay. What you do here is, if the count, I count, see how many things. If there's more than one item in that all items, I take, if it equals 0, I use the start date. Okay. If it's not 0, then I look at the max date and I add whatever number's in here, and that puts that date in there. So if you look in the gallery here, you scroll to the bottom because it's sorted by date. If you come over to the bottom, you'll see 417 is the last item in this thing, right? So, and it adds 7 days to it, and that's how I get 424. Okay. Up here, series ID. I'm just looking at the series ID of this item up here, which should be all the same down here. So that's that. Now, if I hit generate additional occurrences, it's going to start on this date and make 20 things. However, whatever you have set here, Remember, these are just defaults. You can change them if you want to. It's like you only want to add 10 occurrences. You just got to change it to 10. Change your frequency. And if you don't want this to be your first date, you want to skip a week or something, you can change that too. Okay, whatever. Once you've set this and you hit this button, it's going to generate all the occurrences and save them to SharePoint. Okay, and it will add up to and it will use this series ID and just add more to it. Okay. Now what we have left to do on here before this is finished is, oops, I didn't mean to grab the whole thing. I was trying to scroll this stupid thing up. Okay, here, I'll just do this. We'll grab this roll bar, I'll drag up to the top. What I want to do is I want to be able to modify certain things, right? So like, say I want to go into one event and change the time, or I need to change who the PLC is, or I just want to change the name of the event, you know, which I wouldn't advise that because it'll mess you up because you won't think it's part of the series. I mean, it doesn't matter. The series ID is what dictates if it's part of the series or not, but someone looking at the calendar won't think that because the name will be different. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, I'm going to select every cell in here because you basically want these to be touching. So if you go here and you see the next one's here, right? So let's go ahead and drag this back so they're touching. Now this one's already touching, so that's good. That one's touching, that's good. Now these two don't look like they are touching, so let's go ahead and you'll see a little vertical line show up when you get it. Okay, those are touching. That's touching. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over to the icon. There's there. And then there's there. So now let's go ahead and let's select each of the boxes. And when you select them, you'll know if they're touching or not, just because how they form. Okay, so we got them all selected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the fill. And in the fill, we're going to leave that. We're going to leave what's there already. So we're going to hit the home button on our keyboard, so it's in front of it. We're going to go if this item, oops, I don't want to put a period there, dot is selected. Oh, it didn't tell us it didn't pick up right. So let me type this right. This, dang it, capitalize it. Dot is selected. Go color. I like making it light blue, but we can do we'll do coral, light coral. Otherwise, make it clear. And then we'll close it. Oh, I guess it makes it red. So if it's selected, it'll change it. So like if you go down here and you set this one, see whichever one you select, it's going to make it that color. All right, so so it fills the line appropriately. Let's tweak it a little bit. All right, so in our gallery, we want our template size to be the same size as this, right? So let's go 25. It's closer. 20. That's pretty good. So now we need to look at, you know, so our height is 20. So let's make this 20. It's set to 30 right now, and that's why it looks so funky. The width doesn't matter. Okay, so it looks like our template size is not set right. No, template size is right. I bet you it's because these things aren't at the top. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to set all our y coordinates on all these fields to 0, because they're probably like on 3 or something. That's why they look like they drop down. So, okay, they're at 5. So let's set this to 0. So it puts it at the top. Oh, didn't take it. There we go. That looks better. So now everything's lined up. Now you noticed that this isn't lined up quite right, you know, so let's move it over so we have a solid row here. Okay. So that looks good. But you'll notice, like when we click different ones, there is a little bit of a gap there, right? So we could actually tweak it a little bit more, but it looks fine the way it is. Now you'll notice there's a trash can on the end. During my video in my second part, I didn't put the trash cans on the end. The trash can's there for if you want to delete an individual event. So you don't want it anymore. But you put them all in there, and then you just say you got holidays or something, you want to go through and start deleting them. You can do that. That's what that's for. And in order, the way you delete them is if we go to, let's close this up, go to your on select property of the icon, and it's basically remove data source and this item. Okay, whatever your data source is, do not put the gallery. The gallery, it will not delete anything. Okay, you have to, wherever the data is coming from, that's where you got to point that. So if you got a SQL database there that you're pulling data into your gallery with, you point it to the SQL database. If you're using Excel, you point it to Excel, so on and so forth, because you need to get it to disappear. Okay, so that's what that's for. Now, the other thing I want to do is on the gallery on select. When I select something, I want to be able to modify the data up here, right? So whichever one I select, I need this form to change to that event. So I can make my changes and save them, right? So we're going to go to on select. See, like right now it's not doing anything. Now you can do it on the gallery on select, or you can do it on each of these things here. It doesn't really matter as long as it works. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go set whatever you're using up top. That's what you need to do. So you go var select record, and then you go comma this item and close it. Okay. So now when you go up here, now if we select something right now, watch what it does. It should change everything up here to that record. Okay. Now, we need a way of saving this, right? We do not need this anymore. I just noticed that up there. We're going to need to put some buttons in here, because we're not only going to do the current record we're on. If we want to change every record simultaneously, we need to be able to do that. And then if we want to remove the occurrence, we need to have a button for that as well. Okay. So we're going to do some maintenance. Alright, so let's go ahead and insert a button. And then I'm going to make this a little smaller. And we'll move them over here. Now we don't have a lot of space over here, so we need to be kind of cognizant of what we're doing here. Alright, so I'm going to set up one button, and then I'll just do all three. I'll make a copy and paste it. Alright, so it defaults to 15. We don't need nothing that big, so we'll make a 10 font. And then we're going to call this button update current record only. Okay, it's still a little small, so let's go here. Alright, I went ahead and copied my old formula, but I had to convert it over to the current fields here. Basically, all it does when you click the update current record only, the information in here will update. So, here's your event, here's your start date, end date. This is the only time you really need to start and end date. That's if you just want to change one event. Okay. Now when we get to our next button, which is update all records, you do not want to update the start and end date because it'll make them all the same. Okay. You don't want to change these. You want to change something about each thing. Like you want to change the POC, or you want to change the type of event it is, or the name, so on and so forth. You can change that, but we do not want to update the date and time. It'll screw your series up. It'll put all your series at the same time. Okay, so when you click update current record only, alright, so let's pick this one. Alright, and then we want to change it from 6 to 8. Okay, and then we hit update current record only. But I did forget to put one command in here. We want to refresh our data source, okay, to make sure it. So we put refresh this, close. Now let's go back and let's refresh it again. $124. It's not on the list anymore. Okay, so probably what we need to do is change this so it keeps the series ID, because I think the series ID doesn't get set. Hold on, let me check something out real quick. Okay, I'm back again. Now, what I did is I had to make a few changes to make this work right. So, on my very series ID, I forgot to add the code for the unvisible, and I went ahead and added that, so that way it would pull in my series ID from the thing I selected. And then for training coordinator, since it's a combo box, let me scroll this up a little bit. The combo box, it does say a name in here, but that's only because it looks at SharePoint. It doesn't actually enter anything in the box. Okay, so what I set it as, I said if the if the CB series event POC dot selected dot mail is blank, or is not blank, go ahead and update it. Otherwise, just don't do anything with it. So that way, whatever's there is there. Okay, you can see there's nothing there right now, but I can fix that later. And then I think that's all. Oh, also, I forgot to set the default value for reoccurring and all-day event to work off SharePoint. And when I did that, it actually put it in there. And because it was turned off initially, it turned off the reoccurring box on SharePoint because it was set to off on here. So when I fix this, it should keep it saying reoccurring now. Okay, so everything should be working right now. Now, as far as the invisible goes for the screen, it's literally the same thing as the single event, except for there's no if statement. Okay, we're just doing a hard set of what's in the record. Okay, we do not need to differentiate because the only edit mode is going to be edit, so we don't have to worry about it. And since edit means there's an existing record, we're just pulling it right from the record in. And then of course you got your number collection thing here. Remember, you need that for generating your additional. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a button for the update all records, right? So I'm going to make, since I'm going to make the last button, we're going to make 3 buttons here. The last button is going to be red, so I'm going to make this button black along with the other one, so that way they differentiate from the delete one. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this to black. Okay. Now I'm going to insert another button. We could just copy and paste that one, but the code is completely different. So I want to start with, I'm going to start from scratch. It'll be easier. Okay, so we got our button. We're going to move it over. We're going to make it about the same size, since the words are pretty much the same. For our text, I'm going to make it, say, update all records. Okay. Of course, we got to make the font smaller. I think it was 12. Nope, it was 10. We'll make it 11. I want it 2 lines. That way it looks pretty much the same size. We'll go ahead and make the background color black. The letters are already white, so I don't have to mess with that. Doesn't look quite right. There we go. We want them the same size. We want everything to look uniform, right? Okay, now we're going to go over to our on select. Now for updating all records, we need to use a loop, right? Because we're going to go through each one. We're going to have to go through each record and update the information that we change up here, right? Remembering, we're not going to update the date, but we're updating everything else. Okay, so like I said, we got to create a loop. So what we're going to do here is I went ahead and formatted the formula the way it needed to be, and I'll walk you through it real quick. So we're doing a for all, and the for all is going to include everything in the gal series occurrence gallery, which is this gallery here. Okay, it's basically going to go to each one of these and update it. And the method of updating is patch. And since it's working with records, we're putting this record here. And then here's each of the columns we're going to update. You'll notice start and end date are not in there. Okay. If you want to update the start dates and the end dates, you got to do them one at a time. Otherwise, they'll all change, which we don't want. Okay. So we're going to update the event, the description, the category, the link invite, the training coordinator if necessary. Now I set this one up, like I said before, that combo box, just because there's something in it, don't mean there's something in it. If it gets pulled in by default, it's only going to have the display name. It ain't going to have no data in it. So we're targeting the mail property of it. If something's in the mail property, we'll update it. Otherwise, we'll just leave it what it is. Okay. You're going to update your series information, which we probably don't need to do that if we don't really want to. The reoccurring, the display name link, and the URL link. Okay. Pretty simple, right? So let's test it out. So we're going to go in here, and let's say we're going to move our meeting from 9 o'clock. Okay, so you notice all of them were like 6 except for the one we changed, right? So let's change this one to 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. Okay. And let's change this from an event to a discussion. And then we're going to hit update all records. Now, since we're updating multiple records, it's going to take a little time. And I already see an undesirable thing. It's erasing the names, but it did do everything else we wanted to, right? So let's take a look here. As you can see, So I'm going to play this real quick so it's easier to scroll through it. It did change everything the way it should, except it took out the name. So probably what we need to do is we need to preload this information so that way it doesn't change it if it's wrong. If it's not wrong. Okay. So I'm going to pause the video real quick and fix that real quick, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, I got it fixed. So all I did to fix this is I went on to the series event screen on visible, and I created a variable called var event POC email. I've turned it into a default setting of sorts. Okay, so I'm basically taking the training, what's existing already there, and I write it to this. So when you look at this, it's got my email in there, right? So when you run this update all records, the training coordinator says if this is not blank, use what's there. Otherwise, use this. Okay, we don't want a blank value being passed. So that's how I got around that. And as you can see when I ran it, you know, it updated all of them just fine. Okay, and then we got one more to run, one more button to run. But just as a side note though, you'll notice I have this trash can here. I don't know if I talked about this earlier or not. I might have. But if you want to delete individual events from this series, all you have to do is hit that individual trash can on the right side of that row, and it will delete that one item. Okay, so what we're going to do on this last button is do what? We're going to do this function, but on a grander scale. We're going to remove the whole series. Okay, and for that we're going to add another button. This one's a lot simpler though. This is probably the easiest one of all of them. Okay, so let's bring him down here. We're going to place it right here, and then we're going to put it here. We're going to make the background red because I want it to stand out. Okay, and then for our button name, we're going to call it delete entire series. And then of course we're going to make this a little smaller, so we'll go 10, nope, 11, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to make this bold so it sticks out a little more. Okay, now we're going to do the same principle of this, except we're going to run one command, not have multiple parts to a command, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the first part of this command here. Okay, we're only going to copy up to here. We're not doing a patch, we're doing a remove. Okay, we're going to cycle through the records just like we did with the update, except we're going to delete. We're going to use the function of this button right here in a looping fashion. Okay, so we go in here, we go remove data source, this item, and then we close it. Now see, it doesn't like this item for some reason. I think it's this record's what it's looking for. It essentially does the same thing though. And that's it. Now when I run this button, you're gonna watch it. It's gonna slowly delete every one of these items in this gallery. It's not really a gallery, it's on the data source, but you'll see what I mean. Okay, so if we look here, this is our table right here, right? Let's do this the right way here. Okay, so this is our item. These are items that we're going to loop through. Okay, that's why it's important to use the gallery and not the data source as your looping mechanism, because you only want to delete what's in here, not everything on the data source. If I point this at the data source, it would delete every item in the list, period. So you got to be careful with that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and test it. So you can watch it in the gallery. You can see how it's deleting one item at a time. But since it's deleting, it takes a little longer because it's got to remove everything. Now once it gets done, it will be blank. Now you get a division by 0. That's normal, okay? Because you basically have nothing in the gallery to show, so it's getting confused. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do, since there's no reason to stay on this screen, we're going to go navigate to main, fade, close it, semicolon. Okay, see now when we hit delete, which it goes right back here, and as you can see, it deleted all the items that we just were playing with. It's completely gone. Okay, that is a separate item. Alright, now, actually, I think I forgot to put one icon in here. Now that I think about it. There's supposed to be an icon right beside here that is for your reoccurring events. Let you know if it's reoccurring, okay? I guess I forgot to add it. So let's go ahead and add it real quick. So we're gonna go inside our big gallery, right? Because we want it in every box. Okay, so you go insert. I think it's the reload. Yep. We're going to put the reload icon in there to represent it being a reoccurring event. I'm going to resize this to like 20. I think 20 is what I need. Okay. Now we're gonna make this dynamic. So we're going to select the X is the only thing that's going to be dynamic. So we're going to come down to the X property, and we're going to tell it to be, so this is gallery 4 dot temp width, whoops, template width minus, and then we're going to go, I think it's icon 1 dot width because we're going to put, if we put it the width, it's going to put it right up on the right border. So subtract that width, and then we'll just do it a second time just to get it all the way over. Okay. Because not say you can't have it in there twice, right? Whoa. There we go. Alright, so we got that positioned properly. Now for the Y component, I think if I remember right, it was like 3, I think. Yeah, 3. So, let's go 2. Oh wait, it looks complete in there. Alright, so the whole point of this is if the icon is not visible, actually let's go back to X, let's not do it that way. Okay, so we're going to put a static number in here because that way if the icon's not there, it's not going to just lay up against the right side. So I think if we put 20 there instead, maybe it's 30. Nope, 25. There we go. So if we run this as a user, for instance, okay, it should slide it over to all the way to the right if I did this right. So let's go into the app on start. Let's make ourselves a user. So the way you do that is if you go in here, and we're going to change this. All you have to do to change it is put an exclamation point in front of lower. And you see what happens? And it didn't slide over. Interesting. Okay, I got it fixed. What I ended up doing is putting in an if statement. So depending on the visible property of the icon, if it's visible, it does this. If it's not visible, it does this. So basically I just took out the icon width. Alright, so right now we're admin. So if I go back to here and put my exclamation point in, which is a not function, which does the opposite, as you can see, everything slides over where it's supposed to be. So that's what a user sees. Okay, only thing they can do is click on these events. They cannot do anything else in here. Okay, so if I take this back out, do a run on start, because I got to rerun the flow in order to change the state, and now it's back. I'm back as an admin again. All right, and that's pretty much it. Everything should be done on this thing now. So if we go in here, we run this. He comes in here and shows all our events. We got all 3 of our buttons. And if we want to generate more occurrences, so let's do that real quick. Say we want to do 10 more. Okay, I want to make it every 7 days. And it says 2/15 is my first available, which is true. It's the first week after the last one. So let's go generate occurrences. Uh-oh. Okay, the problem was there's no digit here, so it got confused. So we're going to run it again. Okay, on here I'm going to have to see. I'm going to have to do what I did with these up here. I'm going to have to, because we're still having problems with the POC name, right? So we're going to have to go in here and set. See, if there's nothing in the mail, it's going to put a blank in there, and you don't want that. So let's go if is blank. Otherwise, put var event POC email in there. There, that should fix that. I think everything else looks correct. Well, oh, I see what it did. Okay. This date right here is supposed to be your starting date, and I don't think it's, I think we're targeting the wrong field. I think we're targeting this one and not this. See how there's no box around this? So this right here, no. I think it's, okay, that one is number of days. So it's just starting on the right date. That's why I doubled everything. It started on the very beginning, and that's not what I wanted to do. So I believe where the problem is right here. Alright, so I changed the formula from targeting this date to start on this one. Okay, and as you can see, after the 8th, it went to 15th, 22nd, 29th. It put all my stuff in here. Exactly the way it should have. And as you can see, the first available now is 418. And it'll keep doing that until you get all the ones in that you want. Do not do more than 20 at a time, please. And I forgot to put a navigation button in here, so let's go ahead and put a navigation in here. I like to use a waffle menu for this. It's just easier, so you can tell where you want to go. Because you know you're on, there's 3 different screens here. So since we're only going to go back, the only place you can do is go back to the home screen. We're going to do that because you don't want the second screen is only used if you're a single event or a new user or new event, right? So we're going to go ahead and hit. I'm going to select this label right here. We're going to go insert, and I'm going to put a home button here, or a home icon. Shrink it down a little bit so it's human sized. Okay, we're going to make the background white, well, the drawing part white. And then for our on select, we're going to say navigate, main, fade, close it. See, now when you're running this, you want to go, once you're done, you just hit the home button and it brings you back to the calendar. I accidentally deleted that one, but it's okay. But as you can see, it works. And that's the whole entire thing. So if you have any questions on, or improvement ideas, or ways things that I've forgotten, go ahead and put in the comments below. If you have any accolades, like you said you really like this, or you hate it, or whatever, I don't care if it's positive or negative, just put some comments in there, give me some feedback, let me know how I did. And if it's something you can use. And I hope you guys had a wonderful day.